Hi everyone, this is Crystalline with Crystalline Haas Kirkpatrick Counseling, and you may have gotten here by following me from some other videos or from the blog Journaling for People That Hate Journaling, or maybe from the non-journaling meditation. So today I'm just going to go over an explanation of journaling for people that hate journaling, and kind of go in a little bit about some ideas that I have that might help, some tips, and then I'll also have a couple of links below. One will be to the blog version, so if you'd like to read it rather than listen to it, you can have that option. And the other link will be to the meditation, so the non-journaling meditation that begins with a little meditation and then has some time in the middle for you to do some non-journaling. And then there's even a post meditation that's optional if you'd like to continue through that. So this came about originally because I wrote a blog on journaling for people that hate journaling. And I am someone that hates journaling and has always hated journaling until I found some non-journaling ways to journal. But if you are one of those people, some of the things that I outlined in the blog that I hope are helpful is just some ideas and some reasonings for non-journaling journaling, as well as how to do that. So the first thing is that journaling, has a lot of benefits. It can help reduce depressive symptoms, anxiety symptoms, improving immunity. For some people, it helps cultivate gratitude, improving memory function, and then it just also kind of helps make sense of your internal world. And for those of you that are in therapy, it can be a lot of helping to work between sessions so that, the work that you're doing in therapy isn't just during therapy, but between therapy and the relationships in your life and with yourself, and journaling can be a part of that too. So there's a lot of reasons. But the one main thing that I think is really important, especially if you're someone that doesn't like journaling, is just let go of the expectation of what journaling is supposed to be. So if, there's an expectation that journaling has to be writing or even words, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't even have to include words. It doesn't have to be complete sentences. It doesn't have to look pretty. It doesn't have to be every single day or a set regular scheduled interval. All of those expectations that make it, just seem like not a good idea. See if maybe letting those go can help free you to find what works for you, whatever it is that journaling is. And in fact, I'm just going to refer to it as non-journaling because we're just going to even get rid of that conception and that expectation of what we typically think of. And some of the tips that I have for that. So number one is that it doesn't have to make sense to anyone but you. It can be chicken scratch and maybe even not you, right? So it can be chicken scratch. You don't have to be able to read it over again. It doesn't have to be something that even makes sense logically if anyone were to read it. So that's kind of like that expectation too, right? So letting go of that expectation of what it has to look like so that it can just start to become whatever it's going to be. Another non-journaling tip is this idea of bullet point journaling. So some people just, rather than writing sentences, will kind of let their thoughts and emotions flow through and just write it as bullet points, almost like if you were in a meeting or listening to a lecture in a class or at a training or something like that. And it's still that same idea of getting it out. Whether you're getting it out through sentences or not, when you've got this internal thing happening and it's all in your internal world, and then you get it out, you're literally, if you're writing, your hands are moving. So there's a different kind of processing that's happening, this somatic processing that's happening at the same time that it's leaving your brain and coming out into the world and on a piece of paper. So in that same way, it doesn't have to, make sense. It doesn't have to be sentences. It can be bullet points and you're still getting that across. And so I have a little brief brief example. So this is something that I had in the blog and I just wrote it. So one thing that's happening here is you might not even be able to read this. It's kind of like chicken scratchy. And then it's just bullet points like relationship with mom, there's hurt, there's like all these emotions that are coming out, these thoughts of like, what do I do? What am I afraid of? What do I hope for? And it's not sentences, but it's still getting it out. So that's another tip that I have. That's really great for also if you're a person that, goes with your train of thought and then you feel like having to write sentences or long sentences or even typing that your thoughts are going so quickly that you can't capture them. Bullet writing bullet point journaling can be something. Don't mistake bullet journaling for what this is. So bullet journaling is a totally different thing. So we'll just call this like bullet point journaling. Third tip, visual journal. So this might not even include any words or few words, but you can take whatever it is that you're thinking about or processing and doodle or draw. So you can express an emotion or an idea, a realization, a belief about yourself or a situation, or even like writing down positive affirmations and turning them into something visual. And I am purposely not using the word art journal because that comes with an expectation and we're letting go of that today. No expectations, right? So just a visual way of journaling. So you might even be creating the story of what happened or how you feel or how it should be or how you want it to be. This is something that works really well for my clients that do parts work, because then they can kind of after session go and doodle about, what happened in session with their parts or what they saw or what it looks like. And so this is the number one way that I personally journal, because I'm not much of a word journaler. And so I actually use my digital tablet and I just doodle, and whatever comes to mind is what I do. So I think there was another one in here. Yeah. So I'm a stick people kind of person too. I'm not, like just kind of what's going on in my mind and processing that and putting it somewhere. So again, putting it outside of my head, outside of just running thoughts rolling around, and making it externalizing it and processing it in a different way. So you can do this with a pen. You can do it with a big pen. You can do it with a number 2 pencil. It doesn't have to be paint. It doesn't have to be beautiful. You're just expressing. It's just you and your non-journal. So the last tip that I have is voice recording. So some people do voice journals and they just use an app on their phone and record whatever thought process is going through. So it's like the flow of things as they happen. What's nice about this method is that it can kind of mitigate those like mental blocks that happen. Sometimes when you're taking the time to draw or write, sometimes a thought comes in and out so quickly that you don't capture it. And with the voice recording, sometimes that can be helpful. The other thing is that, sometimes writing can feel like a block, especially if you don't like writing, and that alone can be a block to that expression, to getting it outside of your head. But if you can speak it and it doesn't come with any expectation that gets in the way, then it becomes something that's more doable. So that's another option. The one thing that I recommend with that is security. So make sure your app can't, take your recordings or own them or listen to them if that's something that's important to you, to have that kind of privacy. And secondly, making sure there's some kind of password protection between opening the phone and when you get to that recording, whatever it is that feels relevant or adequate maybe for that privacy that you may want for that kind of journaling. Otherwise, the other tip that I have is about learning styles. So once upon a time, I was a teacher, and one of the things I learned early on is that every single person processes information differently, and that applies to us outside of school too. That's even, when I think about my clients, there are different ways that they process, and sometimes when I figure that out, I can kind of help them to process their way. So, you know, I might like draw a picture in words for a client that's very visual, or I literally may draw a chart and like show it to them if they're very, you know, if they have to see what's happening. Um, I use my hands a lot, and sometimes I'll like create spatial differences for people that process in that way. And in that same vein, journaling and, you know, reprocessing or processing on your own time can be the same. So if you're a visual person and you already know that about yourself, then doodling, drawing may be a really great fit for you. If you think really quickly, but you know, can't seem to capture that very well because everything's moving so quickly, the bullet point journaling may be really good for you, or that voice recording. If you learn orally, which means like you hear things and like that's how you learn, like you learn by hearing it better than seeing it or writing it or doing it, then you know, the journal, the vocal voice journal may be a really good fit for you. Or it may be a combination. It might just be whatever mood you're in that day. So one day you're in the mood to draw. One day your mind is moving so quickly and recording works well. One day you just need to like move your hands, but the thoughts are moving quickly. You just bullet point journal. So whatever that is, you know, play with it. And that's the other big thing here, is that in the vein of letting go of expectations, think of this process of figuring out what works for you as play. So you're just playing with it and seeing what works. And if it doesn't work, you just move along and try something else until you find what does work for you. So if you're interested in some non-journaling and would like to try that out with a little meditation, I've put a link below to try that out. So the link below will be for a meditation that is before and after your journaling or non-journaling. So there will be a little meditation at the beginning, followed by about 10 minutes of space with some background music, which you can listen to, pause, skip, and then there will be an optional post meditation to kind of circle back and bring everything around. And that's below. And I'll also put a link to the original blog below as well, so you can check that out. Have a good one.